G'day team, it's Kris speaking. Welcome back. Today we are tackling part 2 of the FTM Sex and Intimacy series, and we're going to be talking about why is it different than before. What I mean by why is it different from before is why could I have sexual relations with someone in a different way than I can now after coming out, even if it's just coming out socially and you haven't started going through a medical transition. There are two main reasons for this. Now, I want to put out there that these are my experiences, these are my opinions. I have a couple of articles which I will be putting in the description box below, and I'm sorry if I look over to the side. There are two quotes that I want to read to you at some point in this video from an article that I found which was quite helpful. So, prior to even knowing that I was transgender, I was in a lesbian relationship, as I said in the introduction, and I was having sexual relations with people while I identified as a female in, ways that two women are together. If you don't know what that is, then look it up. You all have the internet. And that changed drastically. Even though the acts themselves were similar, how I identified whilst doing them was different, which basically meant that sex for me came to a complete standstill, and I could not mentally go through with it anymore. And basically it was just the biggest dry patch in history. I could not get my brain on a level where doing those things was okay. Now, to me, that came down to the two things, as I mentioned, one being language. I was experiencing gender dysphoria, and I had a word for it. And now that I had a word for it, there was power behind those acts. I was previously doing things which I should not have been doing. This is all subjective as a man, and I had a lot of guilt for doing those things with a body that I thought I shouldn't have. And the second thing is societal pressure and learnings that we have from the past. Women should do this, men should do this, and trying to unpack all of those things while going through something new to me at the time, such as gender dysphoria, and learning the language around my body and trying to be comfortable. So there are two things that I want to share with you, and perhaps you've gone through the same thing. While I was researching for this video, I came across an article on Teen Vogue of all places, and it was actually quite helpful. There were a number of different articles that I did find. There was stuff about language surrounding sex and intimacy. There were questions that you should and shouldn't ask. We'll get to that in another video, not in this series, just external. But I want to read to you one quote from Angie Gunn, who is a sex therapy expert, who was talking to Teen Vogue about this article about gender dysphoria and the language surrounding it. Angie says, "When your body is incongruent with our identity, exploring it with curiosity and desire can be really tough." And that's something that I found in a big way. So once I came out socially, I was basically thinking that I should not be using my body in this way because I should not have been born this way. And it created such a mental block that I could not get past it for a really, really long time. And to be honest, there are still times when my partner and I go to be intimate and I cannot get past that roadblock, and we have to stop and we just cannot do anything. So we'll put on the TV instead. There are other ways to be intimate that don't involve sex. The other thing that I wanted to share from this article, and I will put this quote on the screen, is this person is talking about how physical intimacy is no longer at the forefront of your mind. So the quote says, "We learn by trying, doing, and being sexual beings, but folks with dysphoria are often fighting for space just to be. Pleasure is not necessarily at the top priority when faced with a fight for survival, creating a gender expression that feels right, or managing the mental health challenges associated with dysphoria." Again, something I felt quite a lot. So sex was no longer on my radar for a little bit. Just trying to figure out how to be comfortable in my new sense of being, now that I was trying desperately to portray masculinity into the world, I didn't stop caring about it. It was still there. It was still a thought that I was having, but it was no longer had a hold over my life. I was waking up in a dysphoric mess, even as, a 27, 28-year-old, however old I was when I came out. 26, 27 was how old I was when I came out socially. But I was fighting my whole identity. So physical intimacy and sex basically just got pushed to the back, and fighting that mental challenge of, well, I was doing it before, so why can't I do it now? But there was such a roadblock there, because in my brain I was doing those acts as a female should do it, and now I was trying to do those acts as a male should do it, and my brain could not sort those thoughts out. And like I said, it's something that I still struggle with. Maybe you're struggling with the same thing. Why could I do it, 3 months ago? And now that I've come out, and even just to myself, and I've realized, why is there that blockage there? And it's because your brain is dealing with bigger stuff right now. You're fighting with yourself and your own mental capacity just to exist, just to try and have some semblance of normalcy as you get comfortable with your new life and your new sense of self. You build up other things. For me, it became clothing, and I became obsessed with looking the part and being as masculine as I could be while I was on the road to hormones. And that took up a lot of my brain space and a lot of my time. You will exhaust yourself if you try and put sex on the table as well, because dysphoria is a bitch. Now, that's not to say there are not people out there who don't experience dysphoria, particularly bottom dysphoria, and if that's you, that's awesome. I tend to tell people I don't have a lot. Sex is one of those areas where it's a little bit iffy for me. It's not going to be, on the table every time. Even if you start and you have to stop, it's not going to be on the table every time. It is something that you need to learn, work with your partner or your partners, and learn to communicate and be okay with saying to stop. But anyway, that is just quickly why, for me in particular, I feel like it changed, and why I could no longer have intimate relations the way that I did prior to coming out socially. What are your experiences? If you're willing to share them, please let us know in the comments below. Remember that my Instagram is always open to anyone out there who needs to talk about trans-related stuff, or even if you want to just drop a line and say hi, I'm there. If you like the content, then do give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of it, then click on my face, which will be somewhere down on the screen, and I'll catch you next time. Okay, bye.